Today I'll be showing you guys how Sakura and FL Studio works and give you a step-by-step breakdown of all of its features. Even if you just use the presets in Sakura, understanding how all of the functions work is going to help you shape the sounds to be exactly what you want them to be, and ultimately just help you make better beats. So let's get into it. Starting off, the main and most important part of Sakura is this middle section right here. As you can see, it says string 1 up here and string 2 down here. These are the two layers that we're going to shape individually and combine them together in the end to create one unique sound. And the mix knob to the right here, you guys can see right here, this is going to help us control just how much of each of these layers is going to be in the combined output in the end. For example, when I hit a key, you guys can see only string 1 here at the top moved. But if I take the mix knob and I turn it all the way to the right, and I hit the same key, you guys can see string 2 was the only one that actually played this time. So if you set this all the way to the right, that represents string 2, all the way to the left, that's string 1. If I put this dial in the exact middle, you guys can see, that's when both start playing at once. That's when you get an equal amount of both string 1 and 2 in the overall output. So starting off, let's focus in on string 1, so we'll put this all the way to the left. So string 1 and string 2 both have their own individual knobs and controls to manipulate each sound with. We have decay, amount, sharpness, and offset, and you guys can see at the bottom here we have the exact same thing, decay, amount, sharpness, and offset. So the top portion of this middle section allows us to control string 1, and the bottom portion allows us to control string 2. So the first knob here is decay. This controls the overall shape of the sound, so when it's set to maximum, we get this long-lasting sound here. Now if I set this lower and lower, you guys can hear it turns into a more plucked sound. The amount dial right next to it represents the amount of damping we want on our sound. High damping really controls the sound and gives it a more constricted type of feel. The sharpness dial right next to it, this controls just how sharp or how long we want the pluckiness to last. We can control the accentuation of the sound. So if we turn this to a more plucky value, for example, and we played around with the sharpness, that's when we get a super constricted feeling to it. So now what I'm going to do is manipulate my second string. And once again, I'm going to turn the mix up so they both play at the same time once I set it right in the middle here. These knobs and switches right here in the middle, right in between, these help you just quickly play around with some frequency adjustments just for some quicker experimentation. So that's the main component of Sakura. We have string 1 and string 2. These are going to be two different layers that we can control individually. Once we shape them to be exactly what we want them to be, we can combine them together to create a unique sound. So from here, once we have these two strings coming together to create its own unique sound, we can control it and manipulate it even further. First, you guys can see this fader right here, right below the mix knob. This is the stereo spread. If this fader is set in the middle, both of our sounds will play in the middle. But once we start increasing or decreasing this dial, both of our strings are going to start separating. The saturation knob right below it adds some level to distortion to our sound, just like any regular saturator would. To the right of that, we have our typical Adsr, which controls the overall volume and the shape of it. So we can shape our sound to be a little bit different. For example, if I turn the attack up, the peak of the sound is going to play a little bit later. If I play around with the release, it's going to control just how long the sound is going to continue to play once I let go of the key. On the left side here, we have our filter controls. On the top portion here, you guys can see it says high cut. So if you set this cutoff all the way to the top, we're not going to have any of the higher frequencies being cut off. But as soon as we start decreasing it, you guys can hear the higher frequencies in our sound start to get cut off. We have the resonance knob right below it, just like any other filter. This boosts the frequencies around the cutoff frequency that we select just to accentuate those tones. And we have overdrive here, which controls just how powerful we want this filter to be. And again, to the right of this, we have our shaping knobs, ADS right here. So these dials over here, what these did was control the overall shape of the volume. These ones over here control the overall shape of the filter. And down below here we have the low cut area, the exact same type of concept. With the cutoff dial we control just how much of the low frequencies we want to cut off. And the resonance knob right beside it again. To the left of our filter controls we have the exciter here. What this does is just adds a layer of noise onto your final sound. Taking this fader and putting it all the way to the bottom is going to add constant noise to our sound, whereas putting this near the top is going to have a more plucky noise. And the noise rate down here controls the tone of the noise that we're going to be introducing. So if I set this all the way down, you guys can hear. But if I decrease the fader, at the top of Sakura, we have the typical master controls. We have transpose, which lets us jump up and down an octave. We have tune, which lets you control the pitch but a lot more granularly. And we have volume, which is obviously the overall master volume. And now for the part in Sakura that's going to allow you to be the most experimental and have the most overall impact on your sound, we have this resonator part right here. What the resonator does is it allows you to choose up to 8 frequencies in your sound and add an additional layer of resonance, or we can think of it as an emphasis to those frequencies. So for example, if we turn this first one on, the dial on the left here is going to let you choose how much additional resonance that you want to add. And the slider to the right lets you choose which frequency that you want to select to add this resonance onto. So if we choose a higher frequency, for example, and we add some resonance to it, you guys can hear that's when we get some really crazy sounds. So if you're the type of person that likes to use presets in Sakura, I'd recommend playing with this section first and foremost just to help bring an overall huge impact onto your sound. Now down below in Sakura we have this giant gray bar right here. This allows you to control and modulate many of the functions within Sakura. For example, you guys can see as a default we have velocity and level. What this is saying is the velocity at which we hit our key on our keyboard is going to control the overall level of the sound. So if we play it lightly, it's not that loud, but the heavier that we play it, it gets louder and louder. And as you guys can see, you can control a whole bunch of different things here. The pan, the pitch, cutoffs, the decays, a whole bunch of things that's going to allow us to be a little bit more experimental with our sound. For example, if I were to take this one here, it says we're going to control our pitch with the pitch wheel. But if I change this to LFO and I start playing with this knob, you guys can hear what happens. So what I'm telling Sakura to do is control the pitch. Just how much I want it to control the pitch is with this dial here. So if I decrease this all the way, it's not going to do anything. But once I start increasing this, the LFO here is going to control the rate at which the pitch is going to fluctuate. So at a higher setting here, you guys can hear it just moves a lot more. But if we set it to a low value, it's a lot slower. As well, instead of using an LFO, I can use the envelope. Exact same thing. Once again, if this section up here helped us control the overall shape of the volume, this section here lets us control the overall shape of the filter. This section down here is going to allow us to control whatever we set it to. So right now it's set to pitch. So if I played with these settings here, you guys can hear this just allows us to get really experimental and start doing some pretty crazy stuff with a lot of our parameters in Sakura. Down below this gray bar we have the typical acoustic effects. We have delay, chorus, and reverb. All you have to do is just turn any of these on. And now all of a sudden we have delay, for example. You can play with a whole bunch of the different parameters within each of these plugins. So again, just another way we can get experimental with our sound. So overall, this is how Sakura works in terms of an overall flow. We have our 2 string sounds that we can change and create 2 unique sounds with them. From there, we can control how much of each of these sounds we want in our overall output, and these 2 layers will come together to create one sound. At that point, we can start affecting the sound in a number of ways by using the filter, the resonance, or the noise, for example. Again, the resonator being the most impactful in my opinion. After this, we can further manipulate the sound by using the modulation controls in the bottom of the plugin, as well as the acoustic effects. And that's pretty much how you use Sakura. So for example, I'm going to take this noise here and make a beat out of it. you guys like this video and want to see a similar video on another plugin, please let me know in the comments section below. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. My free drum kit is available in the description box below as always, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday.